As we approach the evening hours of Wednesday and Thursday, a major severe weather outbreak is expected to take place in the Midwest, where you could experience strong winds, large hail, and the possibility of isolated tornadoes. Taking a look at the latest depiction of the GFS model at this point, the computer models have really honed in on how severe this severe weather outbreak will be in the Midwest, where it seems like both of the computer models aren't necessarily expecting this storm system to be necessarily on the extreme side when it comes to severe weather, but there's still a high possibility of damaging winds as well as large hail, and of course there's that possibility of isolated tornadoes, but tornadoes won't necessarily be the primary threat associated with this storm system, as for the most part you should be worried about damaging winds and large hail. If we were to continue to move forward with what the GFS model is stating, it seems like the computer models are leaning towards a little bit less cold air than initially anticipated. That's going to be located in the Midwest, which means that there's going to be less instability than anticipated, so the tornado threat will of course diminish, as well as at least how widespread the severe weather outbreak will be, as the severe thunderstorms that could be capable of producing large hail and damaging winds will be relegated more towards a smaller area, and it's going to be a little bit more isolated than anticipated. But in certain areas of the Midwest, there is still a higher probability than not you will at least experience a severe thunderstorm within a 30-mile radius. So you still want to pay close attention to this as we approach evening hours on Thursday. We do see plenty of snow just to the northwest of this trough, and this is expected to dump potentially over 6 inches of snow in portions of North Dakota and Minnesota, so make sure to watch out for that. And the fact that there's snow on the northwestern side of this storm system really goes to show how much cold air is just to the west of this low pressure system, so that as a result we're going to see just enough instability for a severe weather outbreak to occur, just not necessarily enough for it to be on the extreme end. But moving forward, we see that the thunderstorms develop throughout the Midwest by right around the Thursday, by the very late Wednesday timeframe into the very early morning hours on Thursday, where a cluster of severe thunderstorms are expected to develop anywhere between Nebraska and Iowa, and moving on into the later hours on Thursday. That severe weather threat is expected to move towards the southeast, where the states the south central portion of the United States, such as Arkansas, Texas, and Oklahoma, would get more involved, at least compared to what the northern Midwest was experiencing just a day earlier. So you should be prepared for that possibility of damaging winds and large hail in those areas right around the south central portion of the United States, where we see the thunderstorms develop in the very late hours on Thursday into the very early hours on Friday. So you want to be aware of that possibility. And moving towards the northern Midwest, we see a pretty large area of snow extending pretty much covering the entirety of northern Minnesota, as well as North Dakota, with very heavy snowfall. We see the darker shades of blue, the darker shades of purple. The millibar pressure of this storm system is hovering around the mid 990s, which is powerful enough to not only produce a heavy amount of precipitation, but also to create some gustier winds. So keep that in mind. And of course, behind this storm system, along with those gusty winds, there's going to be plenty of cold air that's going to be pushed by the strong northwesterly flow associated with this storm. So you need to be aware that the temperatures will become much colder than average throughout a large portion of the northern Midwest and potentially the Northeast as well. And moving in the more long-term future, we do see that this storm system will eventually approach the Northeast, bringing a large area of rain showers. But by this point, the severity level of this storm will be very low, because instability will certainly decrease, since it won't be able to tap into that very warm and moist Gulf of Mexico air mass. So we're going to see the severe weather threat definitely diminish by the time this approaches the Northeast. So make sure to be aware at least of the possibility of potentially enhanced rain showers right over the mid-Atlantic states and potentially the interior Northeast as well. And of course, the Arctic blast forecast is expected to move in right behind the storm system, so temperatures should fall below average temporarily for the Northeast before temperatures should rebound back, I'll say, by the middle of next week. To a temperature reading that's closer to average for the most part. But for the Midwest, be aware of that possibility of severe weather. Now let me show you guys the convective available potential energy levels. So here's the GFS's model's forecast when it comes to the amount of convective energy that's expected for tomorrow as well as Thursday. And moving forward, we do see that eventually we're going to see the convective available potential energy levels become quite high to the point where we're going to see readings well over 2,000, which definitely means that there's a lot of lift to fuel a lot of those severe thunderstorms. The pressure will be very low on surface thanks to how much lift there will be in this area for the possibility of damaging winds to be far more likely, as well as large hail thanks to how strong the updrafts will be with convective available potential energy levels this high, which will promote a lot of lift and stronger updrafts. And moving forward into the Thursday timeframe, the energy levels will still linger, especially over the southeast, where in Texas we're going to see those energy levels still quite high, and they'll stay high for a prolonged period. But the reason why this severe weather threat won't move towards the East Coast is because you're going to see that the convective available potential energy doesn't move anywhere further eastward. It pretty much just meanders over the southeast, and this is because the temperature is a lot warmer to support for a lot more convective energy as well as lift, while in the northeast and along the east coast that isn't the case because these temperatures are still very cold during the month of April. So that typically stabilizes the temperature along the east coast to the point where there just isn't a lot of energy. The air just isn't light enough to support for a lot of lift or convective energy. So we're going to see that severe weather diminish by the time this approaches northeast. But if you're in the south central portion of the United States as well as portions of the Midwest, the chance of a severe weather outbreak impacting you guys is very likely at this point. The European model is in nearly exact agreement with what the GFS model is stating when it comes to the exact forecast with this storm system, where they want to bring the area of rain in nearly the exact same areas in the exact same time. As it makes sense, we're only 24 to 48 hours out from this event impacting the Midwest, so it makes sense why the computer models have a high amount of certainty at this time. So if you're under threat of a significant severe weather outbreak, you need to prepare for the possibility of damaging winds and large hail, and don't rule out the possibility of an isolated tornado. And of course, in the northern Midwest, be aware of heavy snowfall where you could experience over 6 inches of snow in certain areas. To really show you guys how much in agreement the two most reliable computer models are regarding the storm system, here's a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly. And not only will this show how similar it is to a GFS model, but it also shows that there's going to be enough instability to create a heavy amount of lift in the atmosphere right over the Midwest for the possibility of a severe weather outbreak to be far more likely. But we do see an area of cold air surrounding the center of circulation, a pretty significant jet stream dip, as well as a warm air advection along the East Coast thanks to a ridge that's parked over the Northeast. That's going to create just a recipe for severe weather for much of the Mississippi River Valley. And comparing it to what the GFS model is stating at nearly the exact same time frame when this storm system is located in the Midwest, we clearly see that the GFS model is very similar to what the European model is stating. So make sure to prepare as if this severe weather outbreak is going to occur because the certainty is high with this storm system. And here's a snowfall forecast associated with this low pressure system as it continues ahead Further eastward, we do see that a large portion of northern Minnesota as well as northern Dakota would experience over 6 inches of snow in this scenario. And we see that the snow extends a little bit further southward as well into Minneapolis, Wisconsin, where you could experience anywhere from 1 to 3 inches. A European model is showing a very similar forecast. So if you're in the northern Midwest, you could be prepared for that possibility of potentially up to a foot of snow. So here's a Futurecast radar to show you guys when you should expect the severe thunderstorms to develop later today. And continuing to move forward with the forecast, we do see that for much of Wednesday morning and at least the early afternoon hours on Wednesday, it should be mostly dry for much of the Midwest, but that's quickly about to change once this cooler air mass interacts more and more with this warmer air mass just to the east of it, where we do see that right around the 8 to 9 p.m. time frame. That's when we should see our first developments of severe thunderstorms right in between Nebraska as well as Iowa, and it should expand even more even into the overnight hours on Thursday. By this point, it should likely lose its severity by the time we approach the overnight hours on Thursday, because of course the air will stabilize as it loses a short wave radiation from the sun that's being absorbed by the surface. But if we were to move forward into the Thursday evening time frame, we're going to see the severe thunderstorms pretty much revamp in the southeast, where we're going to see a pretty large line of severe weather extending as far south as Texas and potentially as far north as Illinois. So make sure to watch out for that if you're in the south central portion of the United States. Another threat you need to worry about with this storm is the possibility of flooding. We do see that there's a heavy amount of rain expected pretty much throughout the southern Mississippi River Valley and extending into portions of the Ohio River Valley as well, where you could experience anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain over the next 5 days. And I wouldn't be surprised that in a lot of these areas you will be under potentially the possibility of flash flooding, because the area of thunderstorms will be so concentrated and we're going to see such a large area of thunderstorms that it's definitely in the realm of possibility that a thunderstorm or a long line of thunderstorms could linger over the same area for potentially hours and produce the possibility of flash flooding. I wouldn't rule out that possibility either as we approach especially the Thursday time frame for much of the Mississippi River Valley. So here's the Storm Prediction Center's forecast when it comes to severe weather for today. So we do see a pretty large area that's under the slight risk when it comes to severe weather. This extends through Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, as well as Iowa. This is the area where you should expect closer to a 50% chance of a severe thunderstorm. And then just outside of it, the chance should be marginal, where of course the convective energy definitely does subside, but the area definitely changes once we approach tomorrow. Taking a look at the areas that are expected to receive severe weather on Thursday, we do see that we see a pretty large area of under the slight risk of severe weather, a large portion of Arkansas, Texas, as well as southern Missouri, and then marginal risk just outside of it and a little bit just to the north of it, where of course the temperatures will be a little bit too cold to support for a high amount of convection to occur and a high amount of lift to occur in the areas a little bit further northward. So of course the threat will subside, but the threat should be its highest right over the south central portion of the United States. So here's my forecast when it comes to this next potentially major severe weather outbreak. So if you're in the orange, this is the area where you should expect a moderate risk of strong winds as well as large hail. And then in the yellow, the risk will definitely be lower, but it still will exist. So, but especially in the orange, be sure to prepare for that possibility of strong winds and large hail, and don't rule out the possibility of isolated tornadoes. And then make sure to watch out for the Arctic blast and snowstorm further northward as well. But I thank you guys for watching, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. It really does help a lot, and I thank you guys for all your support, by the way. And make sure to share this with your friends, family, whoever it is, because it really just satisfies me to be able to create content for as many people as possible. So make sure to share it and spread the word for this channel, because I love making these forecast videos for you guys. But yeah, guys, I thank you guys for watching.